Hello, today is the second episode about dark energy theory. Theory about dark energy. We will expand the horizon of understanding. We will catch up with unattainable. So, I invite you. As a reminder, two topics are already known. Today, we will discuss the third topic. What is most interesting? Theory and physical equations. We are still focusing on the first point. We are talking about phenomenon of gravitational energy. This episode is about it. I will show you how to recognize and use the gravitational energy. This form energy is like a reflection of dark energy. Dark energy is outside the object. It flows into the object. Gravitational energy is inside the object. The object absorbs incoming dark energy. That's the hypothesis. Basic solids, primitives. Object should be divided into basic solids. Solids, spheres, primitives. Next ball is larger than the previous one. Basic parameters for solids must be calculated. Radius, surface area, volume, mass, gravitational acceleration on the surface.
Przyspieszenie grawitacyjne dla tej konkretnej bryły, dla tego prymitywa.
Radius. We need to divide the object into many elements, as many items as we want. For example, it can be 10, but then the precision will be low. There will be only 10 elements in the drawing. In reality, we will divide the object into 1,000 elements. For the computer, this is no problem. 1,000 is the minimum value. We can assume it will be 10,000 or even million. Let's set the number of basic elements to 1,000. 1,000 elementary solids. 1,000 balls. Delta R, the radius increment. This second formula, here, this is the radius of an object. For example, a planet divided by the number of base solids. The radius value R divided by Nmax. Very easy it is to determine the radius increment, delta R. The radius for a solid can be determined using the third equation. It takes the form n times delta R, where n is the number of the solid.
Obliczyć, jaki dana bryła posiada promień.
Here is how to explain it in a simple way. From outside to the center, or from inside to outside. There are 1,000 layers, and max equal 1,000. Delta R is the radius increment. The radius of the selected body takes the value n times delta R. The previous slide shown again for better understanding. There is no difficulty here. Everything is simple. A colon and an equal sign, that's the syntax of math program. I didn't change it. This form of equation is even better. When the numerical model is run, everything will look familiar. Surface area. Simply, the surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. Basic equation. These are elementary school equations. The volume of a sphere is 4 thirds pi r to the third power.
Objętość kuli.
mass of a solid, mass is the average density times volume.
danej kuli,
But what is a value of
gęstość,
average density?
średnia gęstość razy objętość. I teraz powiecie, skąd wziąć tą średnią gęstość? Zobaczcie.
V base is the volume of an object.
Objętość. Cała objętość
For
obiektu,
example,
czyli
the volume of a planet is 4 thirds
R do
pi r to the third power.
tak? A średnia
Average
gęstość,
density
bierzemy
is
średnią
the ratio
gęstość.
of an
Ja wiem, że
object's
gęstość
total mass
jądra
to
jest
its
większa
volume.
niż gęstość
I know
sporu,
well
na przykład.
that the density of the core is greater than the
Można to
density of the
doprecyzować.
planet's surface.
Dla
It is possible
uproszczenia
to correct this parameter. To
ja
simplify
wybrałem
the model, I
średnią
chose an
gęstość.
average object
Można to
density.
poprawić,
Density
ale
distribution
ja wziąłem
can be
średnią
improved.
dla
However,
przejrzystości
there is no need
i
for
powiem
that.
wam, że
The slight
błąd, jaki
difference
tutaj będzie,
that
nie
does
będzie wcale
appear
duży.
is not
Także
significant.
można wziąć sobie
That's why
średnią
I solved
gęstość,
this problem this way.
czyli to
Average density.
to ρ
We
to
need
jest
to
masa
determine
obiektu
rho. This
przez
is the ratio of the
objętość
total
tego
mass of
obiektu,
an
czyli mamy
object
tą
to its
średnią
volume.
gęstość obliczoną. No, w
The
bardzo
calculations
łatwy
are
sposób,
simple
szkolny
again.
sposób.
School
Szkoła
methods.
podstawowa nam się tutaj kłania. Także
Rho is already
ρ
known.
jest znane. Skoro
The
mamy
volume
ρ,
of
czyli
ball
średnią gęstość,
is also
mnożone
known.
przez objętość danej bryły mamy masę
The mass of the ball
danej bryły,
can be
danej
determined.
kulki, czy
The mass
danego
for this primitive.
Przyspieszenie
Gravitational
grawitacyjne
acceleration. The acceleration
każdej
of
bryły,
gravity
na powierzchni
on the
każdej
surface of a body.
jest
It
określone
is
takim
defined
wzorem, jaki
by the
Newton
famous
określił,
formula
tak?
by
Czyli
Isaac
A to
Newton.
jest G,
Gravitational
czyli
acceleration
razy
is the
masa,
gravitational constant
czyli obliczona
times the
tej
mass of
bryły,
the body divided by the radius
podzielić
squared.
na promień tej bryły do kwadratu.
The gravitational constant is well known. It is shown here.
Wszystkie
All
parametry
parameters are
znane.
known. There are no
I proste.
integrals
Nie ma
or
całych
differentials here.
różniczek.
Elementary school
Sztuczne
equations.
równania matematyczne takie ze szkoły podstawowej.
Here you go.
Proszę.
Everything we wanted to
Wszystko, co
calculate
żeśmy chcieli,
is
czyli
already
przyspieszenie
there.
grawitacyjne,
Gravitational
masa
acceleration, ball
objętość
mass,
bryły,
ball volume,
powierzchni
ball
bryły
surface,
i
and
promień
ball radius. Everything has been
Wszystko mamy
calculated.
w
Sorry,
łatwy sposób
it will be
To
calculated
znaczy,
by the
obliczone dopiero
computer.
będzie w komputerze, ale mamy równania
The
doprowadzone,
equations have already
równania
derived.
matematyczne, czy też równania fizyczne. na
Based
podstawie
on
których
these equations, we
obliczamy
will
sobie
calculate the
dalsze
next
parametry.
parameters.
Dalsze niezbędne
Parameters
parametry
that are necessary to
wyznaczenia
determine
energii
the
grawitacyjnej,
gravitational energy of an object,
ciemnej
and
energii.
also to determine dark energy.
Tu jest
Schematic
schematycznie
explanation
pokazane.
is shown here.
Będziemy obliczać
All
kolejne
layers will be calculated
warstwy.
sequentially.
Czyli
We have already calculated
kulę,
the physical parameters
bryły,
for the
a teraz
balls.
będziemy obliczać
Now we need to
warstwy,
calculate the physical
czyli
parameters
różnice
of the layers.
między
One layer
większą
is
a
the
kulą
difference
mniejszą.
between the
Będą
larger
nas
body
interesowały
and the
właśnie
smaller body.
te warstwy.
We need these layers.
W ten
In this
sposób
way, the appropriate
sobie
physical
parametry dla
parameters
warstw.
can be calculated.
kulę mamy,
The
czyli
parameters
bryły
of the
prymitywne.
balls have already been
Większa
calculated.
bryła,
Primitives,
odjąć
larger
mniejszą
body
bryłę,
minus smaller body.
warstwę,
The
czyli
layer, the sphere, is
Shell.
created in that way.
tą sferę taką. I każdy z parametrów może być w ten sposób obliczony. Będziemy
Now,
chcieli
we can calculate the volume of each layer and the
objętość
mass
danej
of this
warstwy
layer.
oraz masę danej warstwy wyznaczyć. Będzie
These
nam to
two parameters
potrzebne
will
do
be
kolejnych
needed
parametrów,
to
tak?
determine the next
Mamy
parameters. In order,
V shell,
V shell, this is the
objętość
volume
tej
of the
sfery,
layer.
To jest nic innego jak
It is the volume of the
objętość
larger
kuli
body minus
małej,
smaller
tej
body.
większej, odjąć
N
objętość
minus-
kuli
N
mniejszej,
minus 1.
czyli N minus
Right
1.
there.
O tutaj. Tak? To co mówiłem. I mamy
The
objętość
volume
tej
of the
warstwy.
layer is already
Obliczoną. Podobnie
calculated.
z masą.
Similarly,
Masa
for
M
the mass
shell,
calculation,
masa tej warstwy,
M shell, this
to
is
jest
the
masa
mass
warstwy,
of the layer.
masa kuli
Mass of
większej,
the larger body minus smaller body. N minus
odjąć
1.
masa kuli mniejszej, czyli N minus 1. Na tej samej zasadzie. Tak sobie policzymy masy i objętości dla warstw.
The next parameter is the gravitational force. Gravitational force for the all layers.
Byłaby dla kolejnej warstwy, właśnie gdyby dana kula miała daną objętość i dane parametry.
Gravitational acceleration. Here is a mark in blue. The gravitational acceleration is known. This is for the smaller body. Mass is also known.
Teraz, tu na żółto.
Here it is marked in yellow. The gravitational force is the product of mass and acceleration. The gravitational acceleration, or Newton's law of gravitation. Gravity acceleration on the surface of smaller ball, a graph. I called that gravity acceleration n-1 for the smaller sphere. The mass of the layer. Gravitational force is product of two variables. Result is F graph.
To jedno mnożone przez drugie daje nam siłę grawitacji, właśnie tą F graph.
The mass of this layer is shown at the bottom. This is the mass of the larger ball minus the mass of the smaller ball, n-1.
Mniejszej, czyli n-1. Także
all parameters are known. The parameters of the balls and the parameters of the layers. Based on these parameters, gravitational force can be calculated. The action between the inner body and the outer layer. This is the gravity force. The force of gravity has been calculated. But it's not all. We want to calculate value of real force of gravity inside the object. We need to use the reverse technique from the surface of the object to the object core. All values will be summed. The equation is shown. The gravitational force for layer n. This is the gravitational force for that layer plus the gravitational force of the layer of one level above it. We start counting from the ninth layer. The ninth layer consists of layer 9 plus layer 10.
F graf dla 9 plus 1 to jest 10, dla tej 10. zewnętrznej warstwy, tak?
We proceed this way from the surface of the planet to the center of the planet. We sum up all the forces for the subsequent layers. Gravity force for the ninth layer. This is layer 9 plus layer 10.
Siła 9 jest to warstwa 9 dodać warstwa 10, ta zewnętrzna warstwa.
For layer 8. Layer 8 is a layer 8 plus layer 9. Remember that the ninth layer already consists layer 10.
Bo ta 9 zawiera już w sobie 10, tak?
For layer 7 is similar. Layer 7 is layer 7 plus layer 8. Remember that the 8th layer already consists all the previous layers, all layers up to the 10th. For layer 6 is similar. Layer 6 is layer 6 plus layer 7. The 7th layer already consists all the previous layers. For layer 5 is similar. Layer 5 is layer 5 plus layer 6. The 6th layer already consists all previous layers. Similarly for the next layers, from the surface to the center, to the very core of the planet. In this way, we will calculate the internal gravity force for an object. For a planet, star, for all astronomical objects. For better understanding, at first, the force of the layers was calculated from the center to surface. Next, the forces were added together, from the surface to the center, all layers. Such a simple animation.
tej animacji takiej prościutkiej.
The forces for all layers have already been calculated. Distribution of forces for an astronomical object. The next step is to calculate the pressure, gravitational pressure inside the object. The pressure for layers. Pressure, it is a force divided by the surface area. Pressure definition. The force that acts on the surface area.
Jaka siła działa na pole powierzchni?
It should be noted that the gravitational force for layer N should be distributed over the surface area of the layer 1 smaller, N-1, the surface area of layer N-1. In this way, the gravitational pressure for each layer can be calculated. Equation from elementary school, possibly the first year of high school. A simple relationship. No integrals, no differentials, only classical physical equations. Gravitational energy inside the object. We already reaching our goal. Energy is the product of pressure times volume. En is the energy for layer N, is the product of press times V shell. The pressure I named a press. The pressure for layer N. V shell is the volume of layer N.
Ciśnienie tej warstwy razy objętość tej warstwy mamy.
This is the gravitational energy of layer.
Nazwałem to tak energia grawitacyjna, czyli
the third equation below. This is an equivalent equation to the previous one. E graph, energy is the product of pressure times volume. You can look in physics books.
Tejże warstwy N. Tak? Ponieważ energia to jest ciśnienie razy objętość. Zobaczcie w książkach fizycznych. Ja tego nie wymyślałem.
These are the basic equations.
To są równania z książek.
The key word is a basic. So we've calculated the gravitational energy for all layers.
Mamy energię grawitacyjną obliczoną na wzorach. Proszę bardzo. Energia grawitacyjna.
Here is a terrible sign. It is a symbol of sum. We sum all layers from the first to the last layer, Nmax. In this case, there are only 10 layers, but we are, remember, computer can solve 1,000 layers, from the first layer to layer number 1,000. The total gravitational energy is the sum of the energies of the individual layers. All you have to do is add it all up. It's done. Gravitational energy has been calculated.
I mamy energię grawitacyjną obiektu.
We are looking for dark energy solution. Dark energy is calculated automatically. Dark energy is equal to gravitational energy with a minus sign.
Energia grawitacyjna, tylko że ze znakiem minus.
This minus sign has only symbolic meaning. Dark energy is flowing in. Gravitational energy is received.
Energia grawitacyjna jest jakby odbierana. Jest odbiornikiem tej.
The astronomical object is like a receiver for the dark energy. That's the hypothesis, you remember? The numerical values are equal for both forms of energy. For example, 10 joules of gravitational energy is 10 joules of dark energy. 150 billion joules of gravitational energy is 150 billion joules of dark energy. Perfect symmetry.
Idealnie równoważy się pod względem liczbowym. Tak? To jest To samo
For
liczbowo,
the ideas, it is not the same. It is similar, but it is not identical. For the numerical values, it is identical.
mamy równania. Tu sobie te
Equations.
równania tak dla
The
energii,
first
pierwsze
rectangle
wszystko
shows the
energię
equation
grawitacyjną,
for gravitational
drugie
energy.
podstawowe to jest
The
suma
second
wszystkich
rectangle
warstw,
is the sum
trzecie
of all
podstawowe,
layers. The third rectangle
grawitacyjna
symbolizes the
odpowiada
equivalence
czynnej
of
energii.
both forms of energy.
Tej, która
Gravitational energy is exactly the
równania.
same as
Wszystko
dark energy.
wyprowadzone.
The equations
Nic
have been
tylko
derived.
wrzucisz
Now
to do
it's time to
komputera.
use the computer. The program
liczyć.
should be written.
Czyli, zobaczcie.
The
Jesteśmy
present
w tej chwili
position,
na teorii
theory
naukowej
and
plus
equations.
To już za nami. A czeka nas w kolejnym
In the
odcinku
next episode, I will present a computer model, numerical model.
właśnie
We'll
te
invite
równania,
all the
te wszystkie,
equations
które
into the
dzisiaj pokazałem,
computer
włożymy,
to create a
wrzucimy
functional
do
model
komputera
of dark energy.
i
The computer will show the truth and calculate everything.
obliczy, ile
Dark
się
energy for
energii,
Earth,
czy
Sun,
energii
and all
grawitacyjnej
astronomical objects.
zużywa na przykład planeta Ziemia albo Słońce. Obliczymy sobie to wszystko. I to
That's
nas
all
czeka
in the next
kolejny
episode.
odcinek.
In the meantime, I'm saying
Tymczasem
goodbye
na
to
razie
you
i
and
zapraszam
inviting
was
you to
do
watch.
oglądania.
Be sure
Koniecznie
to watch
musicie
the
oglądać
next episode.
kolejny odcinek, no bo
A lot will
będzie się
happen.
działo.
Bye.
Zatem na razie, cześć!